Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kiran John from Indegene, and I welcome you to today's webinar on personal HCP engagement in the new world. We have an excellent presentation and an excellent speaker joining us today. We're going to talk about the dynamics of physician engagement. We're going to talk a little bit about how pharma companies currently are engaging HCPs through multiple channels. What is a better way to do that? We're also going to introduce a whole new concept which I think is going to revolutionize the whole space called Omnipresent Customer Engagement. So you learn a little bit about that and how big data and analytics is really critical in creating a seamless experience. But without further ado, I'm very excited to introduce our speaker for today. We have Frank Lin, who is the Vice President of Multi-Channel Marketing here at Indegene. And he is responsible for products and technology portfolio. This includes product strategy and management, development and delivery. Frank has over 15 years of experience in leveraging expertise in business and technology to develop customer-focused products and services, specifically around enterprise technology, medical, and the pharma sector. Previously, Frank was VP of Technology and Ops at Aptlon, where he was responsible for R&D, product, and project management. He also is responsible for innovation in this space and is fairly well published and also presents very actively around multi-channel events and conferences. Without any further ado, Frank, I'd like to hand this over to you to run us through the presentation. At the end of Frank's presentation, we'll do a short Q&A, so do submit questions, and we'll try to get through as many as possible in today's presentation. Frank, over to you.
Thanks, Kiran, for the introduction. And really pleased to be able to share this presentation with the audience today. And because I think our industry is really facing some really dramatic change in the landscape of digital marketing and physician behavior. And more importantly, there are really some strong challenges ahead of us. And the place I would like to start is definitely start talking about our customer base, which is their changing physician preferences. From many of the research, from Manhattan Research to some of the more Asian-specific research data really tell us that mobile and digital devices such as tablet is really the way that physician wants to engage with us. And more than 85% of the physicians own a smart device. And more importantly, 65% physicians actually have triple screen users. Which means that they have either a PC Mac all the way to a tablet device and also a smartphone. From all those devices, they really want to utilize those devices, again, being connected and being mobile, be able to research their drugs information online. And more importantly, they actually start to use those devices as part of their patient care. And when we really ask them the questions about what's their preferences in terms of product information, their really feedback for us as a marketing team and as marketing professionals is that for quick, simple, and immediate needs, 90% of physicians prefer product information directly through digital channels. And this is less about their preference, but also about they want to get themselves quickly, efficiently, instead of waiting for someone to visit them month to month or quarterly. Right? And we also see a dramatically trend for their preferences for alternative channels for detailing. For example, more and more physicians are interested in email, and if you look at some of the markets such as in Korea, Japan, China, they are utilizing chat applications such as WeChat, Line, WhatsApp as a primary way for them to engage. So some of the remote detailing is a primary way for them to reach out to to either medical science liaison or a commercial representative in asking questions and being engaged in that way. So really at their time of convenience. And the reason for that is, really move on to the next slide, is that the physician asset is declining. And this is definitely a topic of discussion in our industry, so this is not any surprise to our audience today. But there's a couple things I would like to point out here. So there's the physical decline of assets. For example, the physician asset specialties are dropping at the rate of 15 to 20% across all specialties for rep field face-to-face. And this is just going to accelerate in the coming years. And as of 2015, only 51% of physicians are really accessible. And in China, where just a few years ago, they still believe in number of reps to really target the tier 1, tier 2, even tier 3 cities, are really want to reduce number of the physician visits. And this is really thankful to Amazon Commerce or Alibaba Commerce, where we definitely see that the marketplace is really changing, that it's becoming an on-demand commerce approach instead of a push approach. And we can see that also in UK and Europe, that 52% either due to decline of the field force and other regulatory variables, that 50% of the general practitioners no longer see a reps. So there's no question that for the last also few years, the current scenario is that there is an explosion of the channel and data. So many of you, especially in leading the brands and leading the marketing or leading the channels, that you're thinking about mobile strategy, thinking about email strategy, how do we successfully finally penetrate through some of the social and regulatory issues that we have when it comes to social network. How do we utilize sample into our digital marketing landscape in order to create higher conversions? How about tele-services? How about tele-video detailing? Does a webinar such as this really a success way to present KOLs and really engage your customers in success dialogue? The issues with this approach is that all the non-personalized engagement is still very single channels approach, meaning that when we're thinking about email, we're only thinking about email. We develop contents for email. We might have similar messagings, but you know what? We measure emails effectiveness within the email lens. When we start thinking about mobile, again, we might build an app or two or a mobile website. And again, we are measuring maybe a little bit about how many emails tracking into the mobile, but we are still being measured by our mobile effectiveness by number of downloads. And when we really think about Salesforce and the digital marketing team, in many instances, they are very, very siloed, right? So from a target list perspective, there are typically 2 different or 3 different kind of target lists that the field has one target list and typically not overlap. And if they're overlapped, then the digital marketing team not always synced up with the field force, right? So a lot of work has been done and also overcame in the last few years about alignment of the sales and marketing team. But that is also an extremely difficult exercise that we see over and over again, and just never produce any noticeable ROI to really present a single front of the sales and marketing team to provide that personalized physician engagement. And which leads to how we think about the multi-channel has to change. How do we go beyond the multi-channel into omnipresence? In working with our clients and in working on many of our programs across the globe, we definitely spend a lot of effort and energies on channels, on targeting, on collecting data. But I don't think we think enough about the customer experience. Are we there at the time most convenient for the physicians? Are we there at the right time and the right place? And that's why we feel the tipping point for us and for our customers is switching from a multi-channel mindset into an omni-channel mindset. And what we mean by that is, how can we be present when the customer needs us, right? Are we sending a timely email? Are we bombarding them with too many emails? When the field force go out there, are they empowered, right? So in previous slide, I talked about alignment between the sales force and the marketing team. In the setting of Omnipresent, this is really about empowerment of the digital capability that we coined the term multi-channel marketing, and provide that to the sales force. Are we allowing our field force to be able to trigger emails, be able to invite them to webinar personally? When they ask the field force for medical science liaison, instead of waiting 2-3 days in order for the medical team to follow up, can we take care of those requests right away and seamlessly? Right? So this is no longer about alignment. This is really about empowerment and allowing the field reps have a digital presence and go beyond the field. And lastly, all this omnipresence really all tied in together by data. All the data being generated and the report that most of the marketers are getting are the mobile data. You might get a Google Analytics data for web, and you might get email data, you might get text message data, or field data from Salesforce.com or Viva. But do you really have an integrated view in really understand the channel effectiveness, right? Many of us are Netflix or Amazon users, so I'm going to use two as examples. And we think about this a lot when we build our products and into our enterprise approach, is that you might be lending your iPad to your family, and your kids at home might watch your cartoon. And if you open up your next time, you don't want the recommendation always recommend some of those cartoons and kids movies. The same thing with Amazon. Many times that we purchase a gift for a friend or family, over the holidays, but then this item get recommended into my email and into my, news feed or recommendation feed when I visit Amazon again. And the same thing also applies to pharma marketing. Just because a physician open up one email, that does not represent the fact that they want to be contacted over and over again through email. Is there a right way for us to approach this? And we call this the bias of the data sets that we have in a multi-channel or single-channel approach, is that you just beating the same KPIs to death, meaning that we don't really have a customer journey view on what do they really want to be reached. Another element that we see a lot of success is that the geolocation of the physician is really important, meaning that their behavior at the clinics is different than when they are consuming professional materials at home. So how do we recognize those? Is it because they're using mobile devices? Is it because they are on the website? What kind of email account they're opening the emails? Are we tracking multiple emails? Are we tracking multiple locations? And all those things are really important. And the view that we really believe in is that the omnipresent customer engagement has three parts. One is the digital team. The second one, obviously, is the field reps and the remote reps. So when we talk about those three things, we believe that they need to be integrated. And the remote reps doesn't really limit it to a call center or commercial, detailing, but also including some of the medical science liaison and medical information. And over again, the physician has communicated to your organization that the highest value is the medical-to-medical discussion that you can provide to those physicians. So how do you do that? Well, it starts with the customer planning. Where do you get the right data and behavior data from the previous data analytics be able to drive into some of the campaign management? Are we targeting email? Are we doing trigger-based email? Is it time-based? Is it event-based? Or is it preferences-based? Are we allowing the reps to be able to trigger emails, be able to have first right refusal? And what we mean by that is if the marketing team from headquarters is sending out an email, can the field rep intercept it and personalize it directly for their purpose, either before a face-to-face meeting as a pre-read for the physician, or a post-meeting to personally invite them to a webinar? And we see definitely a higher conversion rate when we have this ability to give to rep. And are we allowing the rep to have a digital presence? For example, we have a platform that actually allows the rep to have online digital hours, so that every Wednesday and Friday, 2 to 3 p.m. Local time within their territories, the physician can actually log onto their personal page and be able to get in touch with them. And again, to promote that presence and to promote that on-demand service that your organization provides for that physician. And again, the reps can be commercial reps, also for medical science liaison and medical information specialists. In addition to that, all those data is being generated is how do you collect all those data, right? And how it works is that all the customer engagement, all the content, all the channels and devices, from mobile devices to Android devices, smartphone, really when the physician pull up that device either on the web, all that data is being piped into a big data approach and really seamless and personalize some of the customer experience that you can provide. And data is the backbone of this omnipresence. And the view that we have is those 6 parts. That today we are still trying to use very traditional relational database, data warehouse. We are very expensive, very time-consuming, and all the efforts are about data preparation, and it's not the last 3 things, which is the exciting thing is about what is the analytics, what are some of the predictive analysis. So the first 3 that we really recommend our client, and we see a lot of success, is how do you do source management of structured and unstructured data from all the channels, from all the regions, coming in quickly and efficiently using some of the data lake approach in the industry, which e-commerce has been using for a couple years now. Really thinking hard about the visualization. Many of our reports today are very much dashboard-like. They are definitely great iterations about the visualization of the data and the framework that really governs what is the best practice from data scientist approach, understanding what should be actionable actions. This is no longer about dashboard or business intelligence, but this is really about understanding what is happening to our customers. Are they experiencing the right messaging and the right getting the right content from us? But technical deployment is also important with all the data safe harbor rules in Europe, in North America, and in China. We really help our clients and our product development in thinking about data in transit and data at rest, and really making sure that we have the right data integrities. And we want to make the first 3 really cost-effective and really simple, because I think that as an industry, we don't spend enough time or energy or budget on the last 3, which is the fun part, meaning that we know exactly what are the right channel mix, what are the right ROI analysis, and what are some of the predictive analysis when you ask questions about shifting of the budget, shifting the budget across different channels and different regions, what would become some of the volume projections, and what would be some of the recommendation engines that when it comes to content, when it comes to what type of devices that we should target at some of those physicians. And really the promised land is the last column, is that deep inside the mining. The way that we call it is the collusion of the data sets. When we combine all the regional data, when we combine brands from multiple channels and multiple brands, do we have things in our data set that nobody's asking the question? Because, for example, there is a differentiation between a physician behavior and preference, as I use the Netflix and Amazon example, which is very different than the sentiment analysis. And the way that to understand that sentiment is really to understand their experience and how do we personalize it for them. And this is really also come to the tuition of what is the pattern recognition that we can put in place so that we can do this efficiently using, again, the big data analytics to provide an omnipresence so that we are ready when the customer is ready for us. And this is to summarize, today's presentation is there's no question that all of us are in this place to recognize that, iPad did not exist just 5 years ago, and now all the physician has an iPad. And we believe that the next chapter is the on-demand sentiments, the on-demand e-commerce is really going to come to the e-commerce space where their preferences is changing. It's harder and harder for us to reach, and we have to change from multiple channels and to become more personalized and into this omnipresence approach so that we put physician back to the center of this piece and really orchestrate our marketing activities around them when the physician is ready. So in other words, to say that is a good balance between push and pull marketing so that the equilibrium of physician needing us versus where we are engaging them are there as part of the omnipresence. And lastly is how big data and some of the analytics is crucial for you to achieve omnipresence. The days of a single channel data, the single CRM data has to evolve into kind of big data approach, and for us to dig deeper into some of the questions that not even being asked in our space. And I hope today's kind of quick overview presentation give you a little bit of view into the trends in our industry and some of the thoughts and approach in terms of the product to our commercialization of omnipresence really is to match the transition that the marketplace is heading over. So I hope you find this presentation helpful, and I think we can open the floor for any questions that you may have. Karin, I'll pass back this to you.
Thank you so much, Frank. I think this was a very, very insightful presentation. Thank you for sort of deciphering the area for us. In fact, we've received multiple questions. Due to a shortage of time, we'll try to get through as many of them as possible. The first question that we've received is, which stage do you think most pharma companies are? Is it multiple channel? Is it are most of them now starting to think about omnipresent a little bit more? Can you give us a sense of where you think the market really is?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think most of the marketplace, and especially seeing some of our global clients, we definitely see a difference between large pharma versus small or medium-sized biotech. I think multi-channel is definitely an accepted notion in our marketing industry in pharma. But what we are start seeing is that smaller to medium-sized pharma are a lot more agile to move into this omnipresent stage. So omnipresent doesn't mean that you are activating every single channel. Omnipresence also means that you're really putting the physician, again, that kind of pull and push model in place so that really how do we allow the physician to be on demand and be able to access that? And we see that most of the companies are still in the single channel approach and trying to manage the channels one at a time. And more are moving to multiple channels. But to move into omnipresence is something that we're seeing being asked more and more by our clients, especially in our kind of risk-sharing programs, meaning that we are the one who is taking care of the kind of end-to-end physician engagement. And in those, we definitely take an omnipresence approach.
Thank you so much for that, Frank. The second question, I guess, is also connected to the first. Is what are the challenges while implementing something like this? What do companies normally run up against when they're starting to do this? And the follow of that is, do pharma companies really need to completely change the way that they are currently doing things, or how do they think about this in a more strategic manner where they can really execute on this?
Yeah, that's a good question too. I think omnipresent doesn't mean that you have to change your complete marketing strategy, but I think it's starting with the mindset of where do we want to engage our physician and what kind of experience we want to provide to our customers, right? So again, when we're thinking about if you have a mobile strategy today and email and text message and obviously all of you have field strategy, how do we connect the data so that we can give the marketing team really have insight into the field activity as much as the field has power to trigger from emails to messagings and be able to intercept some of the marketing. It's usually a good first place to start. But I think the biggest challenge that I see is the data piece, is the flow of the data, the knowledge and the insight to be shared across all the actors that we went through today, which means the digital team and the remote team and the field team, and be able to, for us as a marketers, to make those decisions effectively, it is definitely the biggest hurdle.
Thank you, Frank. We are almost all out of time. We may be able to do one last question before we'll have to wrap up. The last question, Frank, is I think a very interesting one. So here we have one which is about so this person is sort of thinking about the data warehouse and thinking about CRM, saying, I have these two big pieces. I have a data warehouse and I have a CRM system. But how do I really implement a big data strategy? Because I think to what you were saying is that you need to really think about it a little bit more holistically. And I think most pharma will fit into this, Frank. How do they think about this? They have a data warehouse. They have a CRM system. How do they take that and really transform it into what you've been describing so far?
Yeah. So big data doesn't mean that you need to throw away your classical relational data or data warehouse or CRM system. Actually, we actually actively encourage to reuse as much as possible of existing data warehouse, and it has to play a huge role, right? Especially if they already have a business intelligence platform and start kind of getting some of this data visualized. What we're actually trying to propose in terms of the big data is really two things. One is how can we more efficiently sourcing multiple channel data better and more efficient. I think if time and time again we see many data projects fail because of the complexity in structured and unstructured data and the cycle and iteration it requires for organization or your vendors to comply to a set of the data set and definitely also including some escalated cost. And in addition to that, brand by brand might be different, region by region could also be different, and the whole kind of the data warehouse project breaks down. Our recommendation is to use big data to be coincide with data warehouse, but use the big data or data lake approach to source new data, new format of structure on unstructured data quickly and efficiently, and be able to pump some of the visualization to existing data warehouse and visualize some of those critical analytics and ROI analysis will be our recommendation and approach. So I hope that answer the question from the audience.
Thank you so much, Frank. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I hope that you found the presentation interesting and insightful. I apologize to those who we couldn't get to all of your questions on today's call. However, we will definitely revert in the next 48 hours. Our MCM team is also going to be at the pharma Customer Engagement Summit on the 19th of November. Frank is also going to be there. If you all happen to be at the event, do drop by our booth. I'm sure Frank will be more than happy to connect with you. Thank you once again. Everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much, Frank. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.